My sister abandoned her baby at the hospital. I adopted her and raised her alone for 5 years. But now she's back, demanding custody, and my parents betrayed me by supporting her. I'm 32 years old. I work as a project manager at a consulting firm, and I need to tell this story because it basically cost me my relationship, most of my 20s, and almost my entire family, but it also gave me the most important person in my life. I guess I should start at the beginning, when we were kids and my parents made it pretty clear who their favorite was. Amber was 4 years younger than me, and from the moment she was born, it was like the sun rose and set with her. It's not that my parents were terrible to me. I mean, they loved me and all that, but it was different, you know? Amber could get a C in math and my parents would say, "Oh, poor thing. Math is hard," while I'd get a B, and it was, "Samantha, we know you can do better. You need to try harder." Amber would come home late and it was, "Oh, honey, I hope you had fun." I'd come home 10 minutes after curfew and I'd be grounded for 2 weeks. It was like that all the time. Literally all the time. And I grew up thinking that's how families worked, that there was always one kid who had to be responsible and another who could do whatever they wanted. When Amber was 18 and I was 22, I had just graduated from college and was in my last year of my master's degree. I had a boyfriend, I had plans, you know, the normal life of a 20-something who thinks she has everything under control. One day, Amber came home crying, and it turns out she was pregnant. She had met some guy at a party, didn't even know his full last name. It was one night and that was it. And now she was 3 months pregnant. My parents went crazy. But not in the way you'd think. See, my parents are super religious, the kind who go to mass 3 times a week, and for them abortion wasn't even an option to consider. Amber wanted to abort. She was very clear about that from the first moment. She said, "Mom, Dad, I can't have this baby. I don't want to have this baby. Please." But my parents wouldn't even listen to her. My father told her it was a gift from God, that she would learn to love it, that with time she would understand it was for the best. Amber cried every day saying she didn't want to be a mother, that she was barely 18, that she had plans to go to college, but my parents basically forced her to continue with the pregnancy. I tried to talk to them. I told them maybe they should listen to what Amber really wanted, but my father told me to stay out of it, that this was between them and Amber. The next few months were horrible. Amber was miserable. She'd post the typical pregnant photos on social media because my parents practically forced her to. But anyone who really knew her knew she didn't want any of it. I tried to be there for her. I'd drive her to her medical appointments when I could because I was working part-time while finishing my master's, but she barely talked to me. One day, like 2 months before the baby was born, Amber told me, "If they force me to have this baby, I'm not going to be its mother." And I thought it was anger talking, that she'd change her mind when it was born, you know, because everyone says that thing about how when you see your baby for the first time you fall in love instantly and all that stuff. But looking back, I should have believed her, because Amber had always been brutally honest about what she wanted and what she didn't want. Madison was born on a Tuesday in October. I was at the hospital with my parents and Amber. The labor was long, like 16 hours or something, and when she was finally born, the nurses cleaned her up and brought her to Amber to hold. Amber looked at her, like literally looked at her for 5 seconds, and then told the nurse, "Take her away. I don't want her here." The nurse was shocked. My parents were shocked. I was shocked. My mother started crying, saying, "Amber, she's your daughter. You have to hold her." But Amber just turned her face to the wall and said to leave her alone. That night, after everyone went home, I stayed at the hospital, with Madison in the nursery, because Amber refused to have her in her room. And the next morning when I came back to the hospital, Amber was already gone. She just got up, signed all the voluntary discharge papers, and left the hospital without even seeing Madison again. The nurses were confused, my parents were devastated, and I was standing there with this newborn baby that nobody knew what to do with. My parents wanted to take Madison to their house, but I knew that was going to be a disaster. My parents were like 58 and 60 at the time. My father had back problems. My mother worked full-time. And besides, let's be honest, they had caused this situation by forcing Amber to have a baby she didn't want. And now what? They were going to raise this girl, while Amber lived her life like nothing happened? It didn't seem fair to anyone, especially to Madison. So I made the decision, right there in that hospital, looking at this tiny baby who hadn't asked to be born into this dysfunctional family, that I was going to adopt her. that I was going to be her mom. Not Amber. Not my parents. Me. I was 22 years old. I was in my last year of my master's. I had a boyfriend. I had a whole life planned out. And I threw it all out the window in that moment because someone had to make sure this girl was loved and wanted, not just tolerated or seen as a religious obligation. Eric, my boyfriend of 3 years, didn't take it well. But when I told him I was going to adopt Madison, he thought I was joking. I told him no, that I was completely serious, that someone had to take responsibility, and that I wasn't going to let this baby grow up feeling unwanted like Amber clearly didn't want her. Eric gave me an ultimatum. He told me, "It's her or it's me. I can't be with someone who's going to raise someone else's baby." And I, without thinking twice, told him, "Then I guess we're not together anymore." He left that same night, packed his stuff from the apartment we shared. Well, technically it was more mine than his because I paid most of the rent, and I never saw him again. Some of our mutual friends told me later that he was saying I was crazy, that I had thrown away our relationship for a baby that wasn't even mine. But the truth is that if Eric was capable of giving me that ultimatum in the first place, then he wasn't the person I thought he was. The next few months were the hardest of my life. And I'm not exaggerating. I finished my master's while raising a newborn baby. I worked part-time as a waitress because I needed flexible hours, and I basically never slept. Madison cried every night. I had to study for final exams. And my parents, instead of helping me, kept pressuring me to tell Amber where we were, as if Amber had shown the slightest interest in knowing about her daughter. Amber had completely disappeared. She had gone to live with some friends in another city, blocked the whole family on social media, and according to my parents, was living her best life like nothing had happened. And I was there, at 3 a.m, rocking Madison in my arms while trying to memorize project management theories, thinking, what did I get myself into? But then Madison would smile at me, or fall asleep in my arms, or grab my finger with her tiny little hand, and I'd remember why I was doing all this. I managed to graduate, got a decent job in my field, we moved to a small but nice apartment, and little by little, we built a life together. Madison called me Mom for the first time when she was 2 years old, and I cried for like an hour because it was the most perfect thing I had ever heard in my life. My best friend Emily was the only person who really supported me through all of this. She helped me with Madison when I had to work late, came to stay with me when Madison was sick, and basically was the aunt that Madison needed, when the rest of my family was more worried about Amber than about us. For 5 years, 5 complete years, we didn't hear anything from Amber. My parents talked to her occasionally, but she never asked about Madison, never sent money, never sent birthday gifts, nothing. It was like Madison didn't exist to her. And I was fine with that, honestly, because Madison had a stable life. She went to kindergarten, she had little friends. She was a happy and healthy girl who didn't know that the woman who had given birth to her had basically abandoned her. I had told her that her biological mom couldn't take care of her when she was born, but that I loved her more than anything in the world. And she seemed to understand it in the way that little kids understand things, without asking too many questions yet. And then, on a Saturday afternoon like a year and a half ago, my apartment doorbell rang. I opened the door and there was Amber. I hadn't seen her in person in 5 years. She looked different, more adult, I guess. She was like 23 at the time. And the first thing she said was, "Hi, Samantha. I want to meet my daughter." Just like that, like she was asking to borrow a sweater or something. I was paralyzed, literally couldn't even speak, and she just walked into my apartment without being invited. Madison was watching TV in the living room, and when Amber saw her, like her eyes got watery, and she said, "She's beautiful. She looks like me." And I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I told Madison to go to her room to play for a moment because Mom needed to talk to the visitor. And when Madison left, I asked Amber, "What the hell are you doing here?" Amber explained that she had been in therapy, that she had worked on herself, that now she had a stable job and an apartment, and that she wanted to be part of Madison's life. I told her, "Amber, you abandoned her. You didn't even look at her when she was born. You haven't asked about her in 5 years. You don't even know her favorite color or what she likes for breakfast. You can't just show up now and pretend to be her mom." Amber started crying, saying she had made a mistake, that she was very young, that my parents had pressured her, that now she was ready. I told her I didn't care if she was ready or not, that Madison had a stable life and I wasn't going to let her in only for her to disappear again when she realized that being a mother was hard. Amber told me it wasn't fair, that she was her biological mother and had a right to meet her, and I told her that legally I was her mom now, that I had done the official adoption, that she had signed the papers giving up her rights, and that if she wanted to change that, she would have to go through me. I thought that conversation would be enough. That Amber would realize she couldn't just come in and out of Madison's life whenever she felt like it. But no. Amber called my parents crying, and then the family pressure started. My mother called me saying I had to give Amber a chance, that people change, that everyone deserves second chances. I told her this wasn't about giving second chances. It was about protecting Madison from a woman who had abandoned her once and would probably do it again. My father told me I was being selfish, that I couldn't keep a mother away from her daughter, and I reminded him that he and Mom had forced Amber to have a daughter she didn't want. And now they wanted me to fix that mess by letting Amber play mommy when it was convenient for her. But Amber didn't give up. She started showing up at my building, ringing the doorbell, sending messages, and my parents kept pressuring me. Finally, against my better judgment, I agreed to let Amber visit Madison at my apartment, with my supervision, once every 2 weeks. The first visits were weird. Madison didn't understand who this woman was who suddenly wanted to play with her, and Amber was trying too hard, bringing expensive toys, talking in that fake voice people use with kids when they don't know how to really talk to them. I would sit there watching every interaction, feeling my stomach twist every time Madison laughed at something Amber said, terrified that Madison would start getting attached to her. After like 2 months of these visits, Amber told me she wanted to take Madison to her apartment on weekends, that she wanted to spend time alone with her. I told her absolutely not, that Madison barely knew her, that I wasn't going to leave her alone with someone who was basically a stranger, regardless of their biological relationship. Amber got angry, said I was being controlling, that she had rights, that I couldn't keep them apart forever. I told her I wasn't trying to keep them apart, that I had agreed to supervised visits, but that I wasn't going to risk Madison's emotional stability by letting her go with someone who could disappear again at any moment. Amber said, "I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago." And I told her, "Great. Then prove it. Keep coming to the supervised visits. Build a real relationship with Madison gradually. And maybe in a year or 2 we can talk about unsupervised visits." That wasn't enough for Amber. She said I wasn't Madison's real mom, that she was the real mom, that Madison had a right to know her real mother, and I literally had to bite my tongue not to scream at her. I told her as calmly as I could, "I'm the one who's been up every night when she had a fever. I'm the one who took her to her first day of school. I'm the one who taught her to ride a bike. I'm the one who's been here every day of her life, and you come now after 5 years and dare to tell me I'm not her real mother?" Amber yelled that I had stolen her daughter, that she hadn't been in a condition to care for her before but now she was, and that she was going to fight for her rights as a mother. I told her to get out of my house and not come back, and she left, slamming the door. What followed was an absolute nightmare. Amber called all the family members crying, saying I wouldn't let her see her daughter, conveniently omitting the part where she had abandoned that daughter at birth. My uncles would call me, telling me to be more understanding. My cousins on social media posted vague things about mothers who lose custody unfairly. And my parents, my own parents, told me I was going too far, that I had to consider some kind of joint custody. I told them, "Are you kidding? This woman abandoned Madison. I've raised her alone for 5 years, and now you want me to share custody as if Amber deserves to be on equal footing with me." And my mother had the audacity to tell me, "Samantha, you decided to adopt Madison. Nobody forced you, so you can't complain now about the consequences." I was in shock, I told her. The consequences? The consequences of making sure your granddaughter didn't grow up feeling unwanted? Those are the consequences we're talking about? Like a month after that argument, my mother called me and her voice sounded weird, like nervous. She told me she had to tell me something, that Amber was planning to take me to court to fight for custody of Madison. I felt like the floor opened up beneath me. I asked her how she knew that, and she admitted that Amber had told them first, that she had been talking to a lawyer for weeks, and that my parents had tried to convince her not to do it, but Amber was determined. I asked my mother, "And which side are you on in all this?" And there was a long silence, a very long one, before she said, "Samantha, we want what's best for Madison, and maybe having her biological mother more involved would be good for her." I hung up the phone and cried for hours. Not so much because Amber was going to sue me, but because my own parents weren't supporting me after everything I had sacrificed. I hired a lawyer, William, who was recommended by Emily, and he was incredible from the start. He explained that I had a very strong legal position because I had legally adopted Madison. Amber had given up her parental rights, and I had been the only mother Madison had known for 5 years. But he also warned me that family cases could be unpredictable, that sometimes judges got swayed by the desire to reconnect biological mothers with their children, and that we had to be prepared for anything. I started documenting everything: the visits Amber had had with Madison, the messages she sent me, the times my parents had pressured me, everything. Emily testified that she had been present throughout Madison's childhood, and that I had been a dedicated mother while Amber had shown no interest until now. Things got worse when Amber started showing up at Madison's school. The teacher called me one day saying a woman had been asking about Madison, saying she was her mother, and that although the teacher hadn't let her in because only I was authorized, the woman had stayed outside the school for hours. I had to talk to the principal, show her the custody orders, explain the whole situation, and it was humiliating and terrifying at the same time. Madison started asking questions. Asking why Miss Amber kept showing up, why Grandma and Grandpa didn't come visit us anymore, why everything was so weird lately. What do you tell a 5-year-old? I couldn't tell her that her biological mother had abandoned her and now wanted to play mommy. I couldn't tell her that her grandparents were on Amber's side. I couldn't scare her with details about courts and lawyers. I just told her that things were a bit complicated with the adults, but that she was safe and that I loved her more than anything in the world. The day of the court hearing arrived like 6 months after Amber officially notified me. I walked into that room and saw my parents sitting behind Amber. Not behind me, behind Amber. And it was like getting stabbed. Emily was sitting behind me. She was basically the only family I had left at that point. And William was next to me going over the papers. Amber's lawyer was this older guy who spoke in that condescending tone, as if I was the villain of the story for not letting Amber take Madison whenever she felt like it. They presented a case painting Amber as a young mother who had made a mistake, who had been forced to give her baby up for adoption by circumstances beyond her control, who now was in a better position to be a mother and just wanted a chance to meet her daughter. They conveniently left out the part where she had blocked the whole family, never asked about Madison in 5 years, and only showed up when it was convenient for her. When it was my turn to testify, I told everything, from the moment Madison was born until today. Every sacrifice I had made, every sleepless night, every important moment in Madison's life that Amber had missed because she chose not to be there. Amber's lawyer tried to make me look controlling, asked me if I didn't think children benefited from having both biological parents in their lives, if I wasn't being selfish by keeping them apart, if I wasn't using Madison as a pawn in some kind of revenge against my sister. I told him clearly that I wasn't taking revenge on anyone, that I was protecting a girl who had already been abandoned once and didn't deserve to go through that trauma again, and that if Amber really had wanted to be a mother, she would have been there at some point during Madison's first 5 years of life. Amber testified crying, saying she had been very young, that my parents had forced her to have the baby when she wasn't ready, that she had been depressed, that now she had done therapy and was in a better place, that she just wanted a chance to meet her daughter. And yes, part of what she said was true. My parents had forced her to have Madison. She had been young and not ready, but that didn't change the fact that she had had 5 years to show up, to call, to send even a letter, and she hadn't done it. She hadn't done it because she didn't care, and now that her life was more stable and maybe she felt guilt or curiosity or who knows what, she wanted to come in as if she had any right to a girl she didn't know. The judge was an older man, probably like 60, and throughout the hearing it was impossible to read his expression. He listened to all the testimonies, reviewed all the documents, the adoption records, the visit reports, everything. When he finally gave his verdict, like 2 weeks later, he said that while he understood that family situations were complex and that Miss Amber had shown interest in reconnecting with her biological daughter, the welfare of the minor was the court's absolute priority. He said that Madison had been under my exclusive care for her 5 years of life, that I had proven to be a responsible and loving mother, that Madison considered me her mother, and that changing that dynamic abruptly would not be in the child's best interest. He denied Amber's petition for joint custody or even unsupervised visits, and kept things exactly as they were, with full custody for me. If Amber wanted to continue with supervised visits, she could request it through the appropriate channels, but she had no automatic legal right to time with Madison. I left that court feeling like I could finally breathe for the first time in months, but also completely exhausted and betrayed by my own family. My parents didn't even talk to me that day. They left with Amber, who was crying, and I went home with Emily. That night, after putting Madison to bed, I blocked my parents' numbers, deleted most of my relatives from social media, and basically cut contact with almost my entire family. Emily told me she was proud of me, that I had done the right thing, that Madison was lucky to have me, but honestly, I just felt empty. I had won the legal battle, but I had lost my family in the process. Or maybe, if I'm honest, I never really had them, because a real family wouldn't have put me in that position in the first place. Amber tried to contact me a few times after the verdict, sending messages saying she just wanted to talk, that we could reach to agreement between us without courts or lawyers, but I never responded. William advised me to document every contact attempt just in case, but that I shouldn't feel obligated to respond to anything. Eventually, Amber gave up, at least for now, and disappeared from our lives again, just like she had done 5 years earlier. Sometimes I wonder if in a few years she'll show up again, if this will become a cycle. But for now, Madison is fine. She's happy. She just started first grade, and she loves reading and math and playing with her friends at the park. The relationship with my parents is still non-existent. I think the last time I talked to my mother was like 8 months ago. She called saying she missed me and wanted to see Madison, and I told her that if she wanted to have a relationship with her granddaughter, she was going to have to acknowledge first that what they did was wrong, that supporting Amber in her attempt to take custody away from me was an unforgivable betrayal, and that, until they could do that, I had nothing to talk to them about. She said I was being dramatic, that they just wanted what was best for everyone, and I hung up. I haven't heard anything since then, and honestly, I'm at peace with that, or at least that's what I tell myself. Madison asked me the other day about her biological mom. It was the first time she brought up the topic in months. She asked me if she was ever going to know her better, and I told her the truth, that I didn't know, that when she was older she could make that decision for herself if she wanted to, but that for now she was safe with me, and that I was always going to be there for her no matter what. She hugged me and told me I was the best mom in the world, and I had to go to the bathroom to cry because, after everything we had been through, that was all that really mattered. I don't know if I did everything right. I probably made 1,000 mistakes along the way, but I know I did it for the right reasons, and that has to be enough.